Hi, I'm Megan. I am a mental health therapist, and I have been making videos to talk a little bit more about some of the concepts that I talk about in therapy sessions with my clients. I find that sometimes learning the information via a video is helpful. I post a lot of blog articles, but I know not everyone always has the time to read. And so I'm going to make a quick video today. I have another video, which I'll link to, talking more about what the nervous system even is. But today I want to talk about three less obvious signs that your nervous system is dysregulated. So when we're talking about nervous system dysregulation, what a lot of people think that that looks like is extreme anxiety or, a full-on panic attack. And for sure, nervous system dysregulation can definitely be those things, but sometimes it shows up in much more subtle ways. And so I want to talk about three of those today so that you can feel a little bit better equipped to monitor your own nervous system and tell if maybe you have some system dysregulation going on. So one of the first ways that I see nervous system dysregulation showing up as feeling as feeling constantly on, but not realizing that it's actually a dysregulated nervous system response. It's actually driven by stress. So if you're somebody who feels like you're always thinking, you can't shut your brain off, you constantly have to be doing things, you can't relax, that might indicate that you have some nervous system dysregulation. Think of the example of somebody who, can finally sit down at the end of the day, but instead of relaxing, their brain starts telling themselves, come on, you got to tackle your to-do list. There's always something that you need to be doing, feeling like you can never sit still. This is definitely kind of sometimes I call it like productive anxiety. People who sometimes run a little bit more anxious, but feel like they just don't know how to slow down. They don't know how to relax. Their nervous system is uncomfortable being in a state of regulation because it's just so unfamiliar. So they feel like they're constantly needing to go. I really related to this. I talk a lot about my own experience with postpartum anxiety and how that showed up for me very much in this way of feeling this need to constantly be productive, constantly be going, going, going. Instead of, being able to sit down and relax and, they tell you rest when the baby rests. I felt like I was like driven by a motor where I just had to be constantly getting things done. And so I tell this one story about a time when I was, in the kitchen and my baby was crying. And I just felt like the most important thing in that moment was to organize my spices in alphabetical order. It made zero sense at all. But for some reason, my anxious brain and my dysregulated state of my nervous system was telling me, like, you have to do something productive. You have to do something, meaningful. So the second way that nervous system dysregulation can show up is feeling shut down or feeling numb. So this can show up like low motivation, feeling disconnected. For some people, it's feeling sort of foggy. I see this a lot of times in postpartum as well, where we talk about, mom brain. So this is sort of that opposite of that feeling, I got to be productive, I got to go, 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 feeling like, you have time to do the things you enjoy, but you just feel like you can't. You just feel unmotivated. You don't feel like it. Maybe you feel kind of flat, and you can't quite explain why. And so that might be an indication that there's some nervous system dysregulation going on. The nervous system definitely ties into anxiety or depression. So watching out for times you feel anxious, go, 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 or times you feel really flat and unmotivated and maybe depressed. And then the third way that dysregulation can show up is when you are overreacting, and then potentially questioning yourselves. So you're getting triggered, maybe by little things. Maybe your fuse feels really low and you're getting set off. So, for example, you may get irritated or overly emotional about something small, maybe something like a comment from a partner or a coworker, or maybe you're trying to get your children to do something and they're not listening and you kind of fly off the handle, and either blow up or get angry or stomp off. And so then later you're like, what happened? Why did I react like that? And you realize that maybe your reaction was bigger than the situation warranted. And so that swing can often be an indication that your nervous system is feeling really overwhelmed and getting dysregulated, and it's trying to kind of bring you back. So Again, just to recap, that feeling constantly on, go, 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 or the opposite, feeling numb, feeling completely shut down, or just noticing yourself having big emotions and big reactions to things that are going on in our lives. So, kind of thinking of it too, sometimes I like to think about it like imagine a toddler, right? When a toddler has a meltdown, maybe over something small, like you gave them the red cup instead of the green cup, or they can't find their favorite toy or something like that. Sometimes they go into this extreme, doesn't make sense meltdown moment, and that is an indication that their nervous system is dysregulated. And so for us as adults, the same thing happens when our nervous system is dysregulated. We can overreact, we can kind of fly off the handle, or we can shut down completely. And so, to go into a little bit more about the mechanics and the science behind this, the fight, flight, or freeze response, you can watch the other video where I explain nervous system dysregulation a little bit more. But here I really just wanted to highlight these different ways it can show up because so often, um, people don't realize that what is going on is nervous system dysregulation. And when that's what's happening, when we understand our reactions to things from the perspective of it being a nervous system dysregulation response, we can then make some changes. We can then have some grace for ourselves and stop and recognize, okay, I'm overwhelmed, I'm dysregulated here. And what are some things I can do to re-regulate my nervous system and move on from there? And I have lots of tips and tools on nervous system regulation, strategies, coping strategies. So feel free to check out my website and get in touch if you need more support there.